Hello. Thanks for coming back. This is great. Hey, listen. Um, Today we're going to talk about something that is, I think, really important to discuss, which is grief and also depression. Not to be a downer, but we do need to really have a realistic understanding about these issues, right? Grief is common for all of us. No one is going to leave this planet without feeling grief of some kind. And grief can be due from the intense pain of a loss of a loved one or a relative, a son, a daughter, a spouse, uh, a neighbor, a relative. It doesn't, people who are dear to us, and that is such an intense pain to grapple with. Also, it can come from a sudden loss of a job you've had for a long time and really loved, or even a beloved pet. There are many ways we can experience grief. And I do believe too that what's important to understand is everybody kind of grieves differently. So what I want to say is how we respond or react to the grieving process is how we are in life, how we show up in life and who we are and what we understand. So all the things that we've discussed since August 15th, creating an understanding who we really are as human beings and how do we want to be, how do we want to show up in the world, what's our emotional response to things or reactions. Um, all of that matters when it comes to how we handle grief and depression. So, in saying that, first of all, I want to say if you are somebody going through grief, my heart goes out to you. I I know firsthand, many of us know firsthand what that is like, that grief of when we lose somebody. When I lost my brother many years ago, he was only 18, and I remember that intense shock and pain of that because his was a sudden death. And what that entailed for me at my age in my early 20s. And then losing my mother many years later and what that felt like because I was very close to my mother and I still miss her. She's been gone 11 years and it's like I still wish I could call her up. It's that kind of feeling, but I can call her up actually. I'm going to even talk about my understanding as a medium, some of the comfort that can be brought to us while we're grieving. But I just want to talk about that human process of when we grieve. It's so intense and it's so real. And for some people, it can be debilitating in the way that even picking up a brush or a comb to brush their hair feels overwhelming and painful. To eat feels painful and uncomfortable because when grief hits, especially suddenly, when we have older parents, like I knew my mother was very ill and she was going to pass, but still when they do, it's still hurtful and painful. But when there's a sudden loss, there's an added hit to the gut, if you know what I mean. Like when my brother was murdered and many years ago and he was 18 and it was so beyond comprehension. One day he's here, the next day he's not. And then all the thoughts that we have around how somebody dies, right? This is the other part of that grieving process because our minds become just some people, depending on their busy mind or how they again react or respond to other things in life, it's like, oh no, I should have said this, or I wish I was there, or oh, do you know I love them? And I really didn't mean when I said that. And we just go into a tizzy in our minds, especially when it's the loss of somebody we love and we wish we could have said goodbye and we weren't around, or it was a sudden shocking death, let's say, um, our minds can just go amok with, oh, I wish I never said that. Oh, I wish they knew how much I really did love them. Oh, I'm so sorry I was mean to them that last interaction we had. Or, our minds, we do. And we feel such, not only the pain of grief, but the added pain when we begin to beat ourselves up for something that we had no control over. And I think it's important to understand that it's kind of an automatic response. Excuse me, I'm battling a cold. It's like an automatic response to someone we lose, because we think we might be seeing them again, and we can apologize, or we can tell them I love them then, or we can talk about our plans, whatever it might be. It gets overwhelming in our minds, and it adds to the pain of the grief. Again, depending on who we are and what we believe and what we think about death also makes a difference during grief. It doesn't change the pain of the loss of the person or the pet or the job or the friend or whatever is causing the grief. But let's say it's a loss of a loved one and you have a strong faith. You believe in the afterlife. You believe in heaven. You believe that you will see them again. And that can be a very comforting thought. And a lot of people rely on that faith that they have, uh, whatever religion it might be, that you'll see them again. It still doesn't cover up the loss of them being here physically, but there is a comfort in knowing that you'll see them again. That is a good thing. Losing someone or something that has was held we just held so dear, like even a job. I know people who were working and doing well in their work, and they were just gliding along, and they just, believe it or not, there are people who really enjoy their work. They do a good job at their work. They've gone up in their positions at work, and then suddenly it's like, oh, sorry, we got to cut you. Sorry. And it's like, what? It's like sudden, there's no real reason. They throw out the word inflation or something, or recession, and off you go. That is devastating, because especially for people who put their identity in what they do, that is really difficult. And then the worries come in. What about money? What am I going to do? How's this going to work? And my family, and so again, depending on who you are and your disposition in life, of how you think about things, it's going to affect how you grieve as well. So in other words, if someone has more of a pessimistic view of the world or life, it's going to make grieving that much harder. And it might even go, I'll never get another job, or I can't do this, or what am I going to do now? And momentarily, those are common thoughts to have. But if they persist, it's going to be difficult to replace yourself in a position at work, so to speak. So if you are someone who goes, this is horrible, this is terrible, I have to feel this, I don't like this, I feel, you know, sucker punched, I shouldn't have been let go, this isn't right, and all the worries that come with it, those are very common and real responses to have. But if it goes past that and it gets to where you are as a person, like, okay, it's going to be better. I believe in better things are coming. I will get more work. It's going to be better. Gives me an opportunity to look for something that I've kind of thought about anyway. You're going to experience the loss in a different way. So that's why I say grief is different for everybody. It just depends on who you are and what your outlook is, and how you see life will kind of correlate with how you see death. Um, some people who are committed atheists. Let's say they just don't believe in the afterlife. There's nothing more. That's it. We live and we die and that's it. And they can pound their fist and go, I don't believe in any of that stuff. And grief is going to be different for them. They will feel the loss. They will hurt. That will be an enormous loss for them if it was a loved one. But in their minds, it's like, okay, that's it. They're done. That's it. And there's no thinking, oh, I'll see them again. There might be a longing for it, but they won't be seeing them again. The older the person, the younger the person, and whether it's a sibling or a child or a parent or a good friend, all will have a different response. Not that the initial grief isn't there, the pain, but relating how the relationship was to the person grieving will be different. Like I said, when I lost my mother, it was expected. She was ill. She lived a long life. She um, spoke about being ready to go. So she was ready. And so having that outlook along with her, I could understand, like when we lost her, I grieved terribly. I just miss her. I miss her I wish I could call her up and tell her things, but I know she knows. Um, so, but it was expected. And I know I'm going to see her again. And she has visited me already. And I can talk about that later. But there's still that connection. Yeah, it's just that human connection. That's the hard part when we lose it. It's really difficult, especially a spouse you've been married to for 50 years, 60 years, whatever. Wow. Wow. So no wonder that's just statistically a high rate of the other spouse will tend to pass on shortly after when they lose their partner, because that is such a blended relationship, a blended love. And yeah, people tend to, with that kind of loving relationship, tend to pass shortly after their spouse does because of the pain. It's heartbreaking. It really, really is. So, again, depending on the relationship we have with the person, how long it's been going on, who they are, when it's a child, it's beyond, beyond comprehension, because that's not the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to go first, not our children. And the loss of that, or like I'll share again, like when my brother was murdered and taken very unexpectedly, seeing my parents, it aged them 10 years. It just, you could see it. You could see how they were grieving, because it's not supposed to be that way. And then I was grieving because that was my only brother. I have 6 sisters. He was my only brother, and he's gone. So there's that in my mind going on at the time. It just makes sense that when we are going through grief and grieving, we will feel it differently, because we're all different. We all have different personalities. We all see life in a different way at times, and we're going to feel it differently. But here's the thing I want to share. I'm going to stick my glasses on a second. Is when we're going through grief, we need to lower our own expectations. In other words, don't even have any, because you are hurting. And it affects our thinking, it affects our brain, it affects everything. When we're feeling so sad and grief stricken, whether we're crying hard or plodding around the house, bumping into things, that's going to happen. And so, not to really expect much in the beginning of yourself. This is where accepting help and support is really important. Let your family and friends help you out. Let them bring meals, help you make decisions, or set up a service, or whatever needs to be done. Allow those close to you to help you. It'll be a relief, and it will be something you don't have to concern yourself with necessarily. Maybe parts of it you want to be involved, but just know people around you want to help, and to accept that help is a good thing. And be kind to yourself. Love yourself during this time. Just be patient with yourself. When we go through grief, our every nerve is on end, in wondering and in pain and missing, and all these thoughts and feelings and emotions. And we might be moody. That's okay. That's going to be okay. And people who love you and are around you, they're going to understand. We might be really, really tired out one day and just not want to do anything. And then the next day, maybe we'll have a little more energy. We take a shower, we get dressed, and then that's all the energy we have. And then we sit down and stare out the window. In the beginning, that's going to be important to understand. And just be kind to yourself. And do practice self care in those moments. Take care of yourself. Get your intake of water or tea, whatever you like. Make sure you can get some food into you, good foods that'll help support you during this time. And get some rest if you can. And if you need help, let your doctor know. It's awfully hard to sleep when we are grieving. It's really difficult. And we get so exhausted, it gets that much harder to fall asleep. So maybe sometimes we need help, and to talk with your doctor about that. Just for temporary help, I think that can be important. And talk about the loss with people. I know that some people get embarrassed because their loved one or their son or their daughter or their friend might have left this planet in a not a great way. Like my brother was murdered. That's not fun to talk about. Or maybe your loved one took their own life, and that's hard to talk about because it brings up what could I have done? What could I have said? I should have intervened. I should have known. And again, our mind can just go off the rails when something like that happens, because we tend to overthink it, and we tend to want to blame ourselves or think maybe we could have done something to stop it. And inevitably, the answer is it was out of our control, and there's nothing really we could have done or said. But we do go through that process of overthinking and worrying and wondering, could I have, should I have? Because if you could have or should have or would have, that would have happened. But this person was determined. It wasn't about you. And that's something that we need to, it's hard to grapple with, but I think many people finally get to that point where it's okay. I I I, I did try my best. I loved them, and yet this still happened. I see that there was really nothing I could do. Sorry. I thought I put that off. I'm really, really sorry. Okay. Sorry, I thought I had that on silent. So still talk about it with loved ones, people you trust, and people who can listen to you, and just to get out these worries and these thoughts of how can this have happened? What shoulda, woulda, coulda. I could have done. Maybe I should have, or maybe I could have stopped it. All those things. It's good to talk about it. Get it out of your system. Get it out of your thought process, because again, our minds are going to go a mile a minute of all the things we coulda, woulda, shoulda when someone passes in an unfortunate way. And it's normal that we do that. It's not normal, it's normal. But to obsess about it and to continually go over it, it's just more pain on the person grieving. So it's best to talk, get it out. And that's important. Now, this is something it's hard to talk about or listen to when someone's grieving, but beforehand. That's why I say, depending on who we are as people, and having information and knowledge and experiences with other people who are grieving and watching them grieve, maybe you haven't had that process yet. But again, no one escapes this planet without feeling grief of a loss of a loved one. Um, but it's important to make a conscious effort after a while to take steps forward and to get some sort of routine back into your life. Now, here's the thing. This is what I hear from people too, is that part is difficult for them because they feel like if they move on from that deep grieving, they're letting the person go. But that's not what's true at all. Because more likely than not, that person who has passed would want you to feel better and would want you to move on in life and get your life back. It doesn't mean there's less love for the person. It doesn't mean there's not thoughts of that person at all. And again, I'm going to tell you, as a practicing medium, they know, they see you, they love you, they know you love them, but they would want you to begin to heal and move forward and get your routine back and get some little points of joy back into your life until it becomes the norm again. Again, it doesn't mean you're going to never think of this person again. And I think that's the crux of many people's issue of making efforts to move forward. Again, depending on their personality, is that if they lose the intensity of the grief, it means they're losing the love of the person or the connection with the person. But they're very two different things. It just feels connected at that moment of grief. Of course it does. But I can assure anybody who's listening that that loved one is still with you and sees you, and you can talk to them. And I'm sure you do. But just know that you moving on and you kind of getting your breath back, your life back, and you're getting into your routine again is important to do for yourself, for your mental health, for your physical health, for rest. And here's the thing, it doesn't mean either that in a week you're going to collapse again. You're going to cry. You're going to feel that grief. That is normal. That kind of back and forth is pretty normal and until it just kind of balances out. And that takes time. It really, really does. And after 6 months or so, if it's still that deep, I think it's important to maybe talk to somebody. If you're not, if someone is not in a grief counseling group yet, um, maybe reaching out to someone who specializes in grief counseling can be helpful, just even for a few sessions can be really helpful to guide you back to where you would like to see yourself, but finding it hard. And also, as I stated before, let yourself feel those emotions in the beginning. They're going to hit. It's going to be shock and questioning and what's happening and then boom, the grief is going to hit when the reality sets in. But allow that. Allow it. And allow support if you feel like it to be around you, loved ones. Be patient with the process, like I just discussed. Like there's going to be fits and starts. It's going to be in the beginning that intense emotion. It could last a few days, it could last a couple weeks. Everybody's different. But there is that intense feeling of loss and again the mind going and the questions and the how could this happen and I wasn't expecting it or I was expecting it, but this still hurts and just allow for that, but talk about it. Talk about it as well. That helps to get it out of our system. So allow support to be with you. Allow loving family and neighbors or whoever around you to help you, like I said, to give you help, to bring the meals, to help you make decisions, um, make life easier for you in those moments. And I will stress, after this initial pain, try and try and incorporate again your routine in life. It might feel slow at first. That's fine. You know, that's all right. Just in little ways, start. If you had a routine in the morning of you had a certain routine of something you did in the mornings, and start to bring that back for yourself. Instead of five things, maybe it's three things, but start to get it back for yourself. And again, take care of yourself in the best way you can. Personal hygiene, eating right, staying hydrated. Know that that's important even during this grieving process. Those are because that will support you physically. And some people, and I know this because in my family, you've heard me talk about it before. Some people might tend to overuse drugs or alcohol to numb the pain or feel like they need it to get through it. It's best not to do that. It just is. And if you're someone who's dependent on that or feel like you have to have it, I can't tell you don't do that or whatever, but just get the help that you need, the support, whatever that might look like for you, especially if you think it's going to tip you over to um, the compulsive use of it or getting back into an addiction. Because this is a reality of some people. And people have said when I hit that grief, I lost my sobriety. It makes sense that that would happen, but there are ways that it doesn't have to. So whatever your support is with friends, with a 12-step group or whatever it might be, go for that during this time. Now, I also want to talk about depression because grief can cause depression, obviously. And there are different kinds of depression. Um, I would say that grief is a situational depression. In other words, there are things in our life that can cause us to be depressed. And it can, again, be just all those other things I mentioned, like a loss of a job. Maybe it's not deep grieving, but you go into a depression. Going through a divorce, unsettling news, a health issue can cause what I call situational depression. In other words, there might be a week or two of depression, but you find your way out of it and then you get back to who you really are, and the depression isn't overtaking you. That is common also with grief. That's a major situational type of depression. And people tend to, in time, work their way out of that. Maybe help with the doctor, maybe not. Maybe just help with just friends and doing some of these, understanding some of these things that I've listed that can be helpful to understand. And it's good to know these things before we get into grief. That's why it's another reason why I'm sharing it. Because again, when you know yourself, when you know who you are, and when you know how you react or respond to things in life, also will be how you react or respond in moments of grief or times of grief. And that's important to understand because then you know yourself better as well. Now, the shock and pain of grief is going to affect us all differently, no matter who you are. You can be the most stable person in the world, you find the floor just went out from under you. That's not uncommon either. So um, it's just getting through that initial time with friends and family and loved ones. Okay. And understanding the depression part. So if the depression lasts months, it's good to seek help. Absolutely. Get some either counseling, therapy, or even talk to your doctor, because that's important to understand how to get out of that depression. Sometimes it's just talking about it can ease it up, can ease that. So that's important to understand too. But there are different levels of depression. Again, there's the situational, there's the chronic depression too. There's depression people feel in a bipolar situation. Most of those do need guidance and help from an expert, from someone in the medical field or psychiatry, psychology that can help you get through it. Now, recently, I've been doing a lot of research on depression because I'm someone who have suffered with depression in my life, and you've heard some of those stories. But uh, they're finding, um, and you've heard a lot about gut health, right? And if you haven't, you can look it up because it's really important because our gut is so associated with our brain health. So if our gut health is off, our brain is off. And when we suffer with, you know, eating not well, we're eating a lot of processed foods and sugars and unhealthy fats. It upsets the gut and we gain weight, we feel lethargic, we are foggy headed, we can't concentrate. They're finding a real connection between nutrition and mental health and also how depression is affected by it. Now they're still studying this. It's not like across the board, if you eat this way, you're going to not be depressed. But they do know that it can be helpful in the process of um, feeling better and thinking better. Remember, our thoughts are kind of like things. So depending on what you're thinking, what are you thinking about most of your life? What are you thinking about? What are the feelings that create these thoughts and that cause this cycle? The more you know yourself, the better you are. And the more we can understand, oh, I can change that. I can make a difference. I can change that one little thing. Just do it one little thing every day. I can change that thought process. You'd be surprised. And it might feel awkward or weird in the beginning, but it's okay. Anything new kind of feels, awkward. When I first learned to play the guitar when I was a teenager, it was like, it just feels awkward. But within, I don't know, a day or two of practicing it, all of a sudden it feels normal. So go for it. Just practice better habits of how you think and how you feel in life. Because that will come up in the more intense moments of our lives, such as grieving. And I want to talk about how to help someone who is grieving. If you're in that state, or you might be one day, um, be with someone who's grieving, a friend, a family member, a spouse. Again, it could be anybody, a neighbor. What can we do? The first thing is to be a good listener. Just listen. Don't listen with advice. Don't go in with, you know, buck up or cheer up or they're in a better place, or it's the less we say the better at times. And sometimes it's okay to say, I just have no words, I can't imagine what you're feeling, but just know I'm here for you. I love you, whatever you feel comfortable with, because sometimes we are at a loss for words. It's hard to express, but if you trust yourself, you can find the right thing to say at the right moment. But the best thing is just to be a good listener. Even if you're sitting with them while they cry, holding their hand or putting your arm around them if they want that. That's important. Just listen. That's a good thing to do. And if you live with them, if you're someone live with them, just expect some mood swings. Maybe someone who's them to be loving and kind and patient, all of a sudden they're short-tempered. Just know that that's part of that process. Everything to them is upside down and their nerve endings are just on fire, and so it makes sense there would be some loss of patience, perhaps some different mood swings. So just expect that and avoid giving advice. You can ask them, say, would it be helpful if I suggested something? Would this make sense to you? And if they say no, don't talk to me, then don't talk to them. It's just best not to tell them at the moment while they're in pain, oh, you should do this, or you go do that, or not always the best thing. And also don't try to explain the loss, Because you remember what I just said about the mind. In their mind, they have a million explanations and worries and questions and all those things. It's better that they be able to talk about that and express that than us trying to explain the loss to them. They know. It's just they're feeling really lost at the moment. And again, practical tasks. Help them out. Do the laundry, clean up the house, bring some food or make some food, uh, make things comfortable for them. Um, yeah, whatever you see in front of you that can be done, do it. Do the dishes. Even if you're a neighbor, stop by. You're seeing that they're supported with friends. Go in the kitchen. Does it need cleaning up? Can the dishes be done? Maybe you know, oh, they need a meal tonight. Fix a simple meal or whatever they might need and bring it over. Uh, those simple tasks mean the world to people in those moments, I can tell you. And stay connected and available. Sometimes when people are going through grief, I know for me, it's like I don't mind, I can make a meal, I can bring food. I just lost my neighbor at the beginning of the year. Um, she was so awesome. They were a lovely couple, and she lost her battle with cancer, and that was hard for everybody. She was a school teacher. The neighbors loved her. She was just so awesome. And it was a big loss for all of us, but I mean, it was incredibly hard for him, as you can imagine. And the neighbors we got together, we were there to listen. We would, sit with him or stand with him. He wanted to be outside, get a breath of fresh air. I'd go across the street, just let him talk. Um, I brought some food, as the other neighbors did. And so we can do those practical things at the moment, which are vital and very important and so appreciated by the one grieving. But then it's like, well, now what? I don't want to interfere. I don't want to bother them. What do I say? What do I do? It's like this. And but they do need that contact. And their neighbors would stay in touch with him, and we would, you know, text, or if he was outside walking the dog, one of us, I could tell, would go right out, how you doing today? What's happening? Anything I can do for you or get you, running errands and things like that. Stay connected with them as much as possible, and understand where they are. If you kind of sense they're like not in a talkative mood, fine. They don't have to talk. Just try it another day, but stay connected. Offer words that touch the heart. Now that could be, you know, it could be a wonderful memory of their loved one. I would often say to him, I go, she was awesome. I loved talking with her. She's so upbeat. We had great conversations. And, I would, that, because I felt it. I feel the loss too, just in my own little way, just being a neighbor, but I can't imagine what he thinks. But I wanted, I just sharing good memories and thoughts like that, I think are helpful too, as well, to the people. So I know that all of us have been, well, I can't say all of us have been in that situation, and either grieving or being helpful to someone grieving. But more than likely, you will be if you haven't experienced any of it already. And I hope that what I've shared today can be helpful. And again, understanding yourself, who you are, the things, how you respond or react to life, or even what you believe, is important to understand, because it's how it'll be what comes forward during a moment of grief or even excitement. It doesn't matter. It's just who we are. How do we express ourselves in life? And everything's a new process. The first time you grieve, it's new. You're curious. You're like not curious. You're like, you have all those thoughts and the whirling mind and all the questions and the feelings. And then in time, some people I know have had many losses in their life. many. And you wonder how they get through that. Someone I know who lost two children, a spouse, and a very good friend in a short amount of time. And their resilience in life is amazing because they have an inner strength, they have an inner faith. And it doesn't mean they don't miss their loved ones because they do. They just do, but they have that, they know they'll see them again. And so, what I want to say just before I end is just as a practicing medium, we do live on. It doesn't matter. We do. We will go on. We lose this earthly clothing, our physical being part of it, but our essence, our soul lives on. And I've had such an honor to bring many people through. And it is a very sacred and spiritual moment when that happens. And I've brought atheists through. Literally, I brought people who were atheists come through and go, can you believe I'm doing this? Can you believe this is happening? So even if you don't have a belief system, even if you don't believe in anything, even if you really truly think there's no God, there's no spiritual thing, there's nothing, no soul, no whatever, no afterlife, you can believe that because that's your journey on this earth. But I can guarantee you, you will be on the other side when death occurs and your body goes, because you don't. You will live on. And when you get there, you might think, shoot, I should have paid more attention. I should have nurtured that part of me. You probably will, but you do you, if that's what you're thinking. Um, I just want to let you know, though, that you will be on the other side. And look me up. We can have a laugh about it if you want. But anyway, for today, I'm glad I touched on this topic of grief. And I know there's so much more to share and to say and different experiences. But I think the important thing is to understand that we show up, we feel these things in life, as to who we are and what we believe and all our experiences or what our thoughts are about it. And so people are going to feel differently. Some people, I just, when I was doing some research, can kind of, I don't want to say breeze through grief. It's not that, but they can get back into their daily routines a little more quickly because they're assured about a lot of things in their life and their belief systems, and they know that their loved ones would want them to move on in life. And they know that moving on in life doesn't mean you're giving up your thoughts of the loved one. It doesn't mean that at all. And that's that sticky point when people think, well, if I stop crying, it means I'm not remembering them. And I understand that mind connection with the feelings with that, but that's not the issue. That they're two separate things. So just know, no matter who you are an amazing human being on this planet, and you're a miracle here on this planet, and you matter very, very much. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you soon. Bye for now.